What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video, I am going to be taking a meme skill and making a legitimate build. That was honestly one of the easiest shapers I've done in a really long time. All right, guys, let's dive in. Now, my last video was 30 minutes long, and that's way too long. We're gonna try to do this briefly. So, what does this build do well? The answer is everything. I did not kill Ubers with it, but I killed, I think, just about every other boss in the game. I did maps, I did juiced maps, I did juice maps with and without Headhunter. The build is just fantastic. So let's dive into how it works, what you need to get it going, and how to make it the best it can be. So let's just jump into this map here and quickly talk about the way this works. So you have a Hydrosphere that is, you can see the outline of it roughly here. This is the size of your area of effect. You can kind of see it pulse, and it hits everything in that circle. And when you move it, everything, I point at the screen like you can see it, everything along the line gets hit. So what happens is, if you have an enemy right in front of you here and you move your Hydrosphere, it hits the enemy, and then when it stops, it pulses and hits again. So if your average hit of Hydrosphere is 1 million, you're hitting 2 million damage by swinging your Hydrosphere onto an enemy. That is enough to kill just about any rare mob in the game that isn't like juiced up. And usually by the second or third pulse, once you hit an enemy with it, it kills even the juicier rares. So the idea is, when you're moving around, let's say you're heading towards enemies and the ball's behind you, you cast it way out in front of you and it slides through. And if you're in the middle of a pack, it'll just slide through and shatter everything on the screen. Incredibly satisfying gameplay. I would say Winter Orb is worse than this. The shatters are bigger, the damage is bigger, the single target is bigger. I just really enjoy playing this. We are an occultist, we are power charge stacking. The main reason for this is the area of effect that you can generate from stacking a bunch of power charges on top of all the other benefits that you get from power charges, damage, etc. between occultist, the tree, and gear. So Void Battery, we have one of these in the build. You can use 2, you'll lose some survivability, but you'll gain some damage. I crafted a shield. I got very lucky crafting the shield. I actually crafted this from scratch, and I hit this shield as is. So I decided to go spell block. I put Tempest Shield into the build. Spell block actually feels really good. So I highly recommend, if you craft a power charge shield, to go and try to get some spell block so you can cap it and not have to worry about spell suppression. We get another power charge from our helmet. This is a very standard Blizzard crown. You want +1 power charge and -9. I did elevated to -12 cold resistance against enemies. I got very lucky when I crafted this and I hit mana reservation. You actually don't need this. It just makes it a little bit more comfortable if you don't have a lot of mana cost reduction in the build, which you do need to do. We get a little bit on this ring here. We have a mana flask that has mana cost reduction. We have some other stuff on the tree. It's pretty expensive to cast Hydrosphere on a 6 link. Next important item, Ashes of the Stars. 30 quality affects Hydrosphere's pulse frequency. The only way to scale the amount of times that Hydrosphere hits on bosses is pulse frequency. Cast speed affects you moving it around, which is actually really nice because you don't have to invest in cast speed. Normally, cast speed is something that's mandatory on just about every spell. But with Hydrosphere, you get the Helm enchant 30% increased, you get Ashes for 30% increased, and then you get 20 from the gem itself, the quality. And that's all the local cast speed that you can get for Hydrosphere. So higher actual cast speed doesn't really do much for us because we can move the ball around pretty freely anyway. And that is one of the reasons that we don't go Badge of the Brotherhood, because frenzy charges give us cast speed that we don't end up using. So instead of Badge of the Brotherhood, we go for Inner Conviction, which is more spell damage per power charge. This makes each power charge so valuable, which is why we take one here, we take one here, and then we anoint this one here. Back to our gear. The gloves, nothing special on the affixes of these gloves. The explicits of the gloves, I should say. Res, life, and then crafted damage. But the implicits are important. We get cold damage leeches life here if you don't get it on a large cluster from Doriani's. And freezes you inflict spread to other enemies within a radius of 16. This is the exquisite mod, it goes up to 17. I would say you probably want 15 minimum. It feels really nice when you chain freeze and explode the entire screen. And that is the point of the build, to freeze the entire screen. The Headhunter doesn't do as much as I thought it would do. I tested it with just this random Stygian Vice with Strength and Dex to make up for the Strength and Dex I lost from Headhunter. And I could barely tell the difference. It was like a little bit of move speed from time to time. Otherwise, I couldn't tell. So Headhunter, not mandatory. I don't even know that I would recommend Inspired Learning. You just don't really need it. The boots, these are crazy. I played this build for a day without these, where I just had Tailwind. These are really nice for move speed. The build doesn't get a lot of move speed elsewhere, so Elusive, Onslaught Effect, and Tailwind just give you a ton of move speed. It's really, really nice to just go faster. Otherwise, these don't give us damage because you don't get the effects of action speed or Onslaught when it comes to cast speed. It just doesn't help you. So these boots, not mandatory, they're just to go fast. This ring I crafted. Frostbite rings you can get pretty easily, Fractured from Delve. Then I hit it with multi-essences until I got the things that I wanted. Nothing on here is mandatory. The minus mana cost is probably mandatory depending on what your other gear is, but really, really nice ring here. And lastly, a Carcass Jack. The reason I went with this is not only does it give you just all around good stats with area effect and area damage, but you can get corrupted ones pretty easily. I think this was 2 divines with the corruption for AoE. Gem levels are very, very strong to scale Hydrosphere because its base damage is so big that or extra levels gives you much bigger base damage. Nothing interesting on the flask. You can just look at the POB. Let's go to the skill tree. All right, so the skill tree, we already talked about the Militant Faith here. The mods on it aren't super important. You can get area damage, elemental damage, mana cost reduction, but we don't actually take that many points here, so we don't have that much devotion. So it ultimately is not that big of a deal which one you get. However, you need to have High Templar Dominus so you can get Inner Conviction for 30% more spell damage. For our cluster jewels, we use 2 different larges. This gives us ES Leech and Hinder, which is slows enemies, very strong. Spell block, we actually cap our spell block on this build, and it feels amazing. Briefly, let's talk about the fact that we use Ghost Dance alongside of Spell Block. I've never used these 2 together before, but big evasion, big spell block means we don't get hit by either spells or attacks very often. Now with armor, that only prevents physical damage attacks. It doesn't affect physical damage that's converted in attacks or spells or anything like that. So this actually, evasion spell block, covers pretty much all hits. So you don't get hit very often, but when you do, you have Ghost Dance, and that recovers your ES just about fully, I think, with the amount of evasion that we have. So turns out spell block, evasion, and Ghost Dance are a match made in heaven. I really, really liked putting these together. Combine that with the elusive that we get on our boots, which is a little bit more dodge, and we just never really get hit. On top of that, we freeze the entire screen, so nothing has a chance to hit us. Anyway, so we use Thaumaphage. We use Conjured Wall, more damage. On our other large cluster, we get Blanketed Snow for penetration, very important. Prismatic Heart, just damage and res. And then for our cluster jewels, we use 2 different cluster jewels. We use 1 Towering Threat and Vast Power. This gives us 30 AoE. We don't use 2 because then you go over the cap of 50 and it's not worth it. Towering Threat. And then we use 3 of these, Empowered Envoy and Fulfilling Prophecy. Empowered Envoy gives us 40% increased damage for our Herald of Ice and 20% increased effect of the buff. And it also gives us base crit from Self-Fulfilling Prophecy and multi if you've crit with a Herald skill recently. Our Herald of Ice ends up critting, I think, 95 to 100% of the time because we use 3 of these. So we get 3 flat base crit. Huge. So 3 Empowered Envoys and Self-Fulfilling Prophecy combined with a Watcher's Eye that gives us base crit from Hatred. We end up giving our Herald of Ice something like 5 to 6 base crit. Really, really strong. We're able to get max crit, which means our shatters from Herald of Ice can kill and cause more shatters and more explosions. That's how you end up shattering the entire screen. That's why the Herald of Ice that you saw in the video was just all over the place. Huge shatters. Very, very nice. We also get some evade chance affected by Grace in here to get our evade cap, or get close to evade cap. More synergy with Ghost Dance. After that, there's not really much else going on here. I originally played this build with Elia Void, and then I realized that I just simply didn't need it. It didn't do anything for me because I was never getting hit. We already have freeze immunity from Occultist and chill immunity, and you're never going to get ignited if you don't get hit. So I ended up getting it out of the build. I had it on my boots, I had it here, and I had it in this shield mastery. But instead we get some more block, and we don't use the LA Void. For our Ascendancy, additional curse, very strong. Forbidden Power, this is the meat of the build. AoE per power charge, so we get 60 damage, 60 area of effect, and then +1 power charge. Void Beacon and Frigid Wake, as all cold occultists do, go this way. And that is pretty much it for the tree. All right, let's quickly talk about the gems. We are using Anomalous Assassin's Mark on Arcanist brand, so we can just put it down and it'll attach to a boss. Frost Shield, super nice. It gives us a bunch more damage, as well as protects us from damage. Our auras are Hatred, Grace, Enlighten, and Tempest Shield. This allows us to get to block cap, which is really nice. Herald of Purity as well, and we use Immortal Call on cast when damage taken. We have a 4-link boot setup here. We go Flame Dash and Arcane Surge, as well as Vortex linked to Arcane Surge and Bone Chill. So when we walk around, we put these huge vortexes down that chill the enemy and cause them to take more damage. Very, very strong. Good, especially good for bosses. It actually gets to a point where when you're mapping, your vortex is going to hit and kill enemies and then shatter the whole screen, and you won't even have to cast your Hydrosphere. I tried a 6-link vortex. It didn't feel as good. You had to kind of manually run around a lot more, and I just didn't like it. Lastly, we have kind of the core of the build here, a 4-link Herald device. So strong. Awaken increased area of effect, increase critical strikes to give us more base crit, and awaken added cold. When this is level 5, that's even better. We get +1. This is so important to making sure that we really shatter the entire screen. Pretty much anything that's within, I think it's 23 units is our radius on Herald device. That's really big. And then our 6-link in our chest, we have Hydrosphere at level 27 with 50 quality because of Ashes. And then we use an Empower. We use increased crit damage, power charge on crit, inspiration for -, mana cost, and awakened cold penetration. And that's really it for the gems. Guys, this build is so much fun. I cannot recommend it enough. I know I put out a lot of videos and I say how much fun I have with the build. This one was unbelievable. I just couldn't stop smiling while I was playing it. And the fact that it can kill bosses is really just absurd. I did not expect Hydrosphere to be able to go into the end game and kill Maven. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you want to support my channel. I really appreciate it. Also, I stream on Twitch all the time. Come and check me out. Link is going to be in the description, twitch.tv/AER0__, and go and like and follow there. All right, I got to go get ready for the stream. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you guys so much. And as always, take care.